Hey guys, welcome to the first episode of the Buff Nerd podcast. My name is Terrence Davey, and just to give you a little backstory on especially the name Buff Nerd, because it sounds ridiculous, but it describes me perfectly. I was a chemist for a while. I didn't like doing that, but I somehow got caught up on the track of you go to school, you do some job that lines up with your degree. I was a chemistry major because I liked science, and why not chemistry? But a couple years down the line, I just realized that wasn't for me. And it took me a while to actually take a step forward and change my life. But the thing that really made me do it was paying attention to my habits, both physically, especially through jiu-jitsu and kickboxing, and mentally. I started a meditation habit and eventually built up the courage to strike out and start my own personal training business. And that's where I am now. I also work for a software company, but personal training is my passion. I like helping to empower people and hopefully spread a little love, spread a little knowledge about meditation, fitness, and just living a healthy lifestyle. And with that, I'd like to introduce my first guest for the podcast, Kaitlin Huwe. She is an artist, yoga and meditation teacher, and the founder of Soul Flow Yoga. So, hey, Kaitlin.
Hi.
How you
Thanks
doing?
for having me. I'm great.
Thanks for taking the plunge and being the first member of the podcast.
Oh, I'm so honored.
It took
to
a lot
be
of
here.
courage.
I think this is great.
Who knows how this is going to go? No, it'll go fine. We're just going to have a little conversation. So, hi. If you want to tell me a little bit about yourself, where are you from?
So I grew up in Mountain View, California. Lived in the Bay Area my whole life, just south of San Francisco.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then I moved down to LA in 2009 to go to UCLA and study acting, and I've been here in the city ever since.
Oh, I didn't even know you were a Bruin this whole
Oh,
time.
yeah. Wait, you're a Bruin too?
Yeah,
oh,
Bruins.
Dang.
Yeah, I
yes.
graduated 2013.
Same with me.
Really?
Yeah.
Imagine
So
that.
we were in the same graduating class and had no idea. Amazing.
Yeah. What made you pursue acting?
Wow. Well, I've been acting since I was 7, but really, like, as soon as I could talk, I was telling stories and making shows, but did my first official show when I was 7. And I basically found a really beautiful sort of spiritual connection acting where, it just felt so expansive to me to be able to open up and, see life through a totally different perspective. And that was really exciting to me. And just the act of it, I think, I was just talking with an actor friend the other day. There is a sense of union when you're acting. Like, you can't hide anywhere. And I find that with each role I play, I'm evolved in some way. I'm healed in some way. And yeah. So that's why I'm still doing it, and it's a lot of fun.
Nice. So that's interesting. Did you start playing music around that time too? I don't know. You guys definitely don't know, but first of all, her yoga classes are incredible. Mm-hmm. And at the end of each yoga class, we lay down, close our eyes, and she serenades us with a nice melody from her guitar and her beautiful voice. So Kaitlin is very talented.
Thank you. Yeah, I like to offer up lullabies at the end of yoga because I feel like music just goes straight into the heart space, and you don't have to think about it. You don't have to rationalize it. You don't have to understand it. It just moves you. And my dad gave me a guitar when I was 12 and told me that the biggest regret he had in his life was that he never learned to play guitar. And I was like, okay, I will learn this. And so I started writing songs when I was 16, and when I was away at college, my first year, it was just the way, when I wasn't in a show, to be an actor, you have to be in a specific container with a role in a show with a director. And the guitar was just something I could come home to and just kind of let off some steam and write about, what was going on for me, process things through poetry and melody. So it's been really close to me. And then as I started teaching yoga, I started singing at sound baths. I would sing at the end of sound baths, and people would come up to me at the end and just say, oh my gosh, like, thank you. That helped me cry and I needed to. Or, will you come to my house and sing me to sleep? And
at the end of what was it? Sound baths?
Sound baths,
what is
yeah.
It?
So there's this amazing sort of ancient sound healing technology that comes through gongs and crystal bowls and didgeridoo. Really anything can be used for sound healing. I used guitar and voice mainly, but I had the opportunity to work with some really amazing sound healers through this yoga studio I used to work at called The Hub. And they play gongs that are tuned to planetary frequencies and tuning forks, obviously, which are, very specific frequencies. And you lay down for an hour, hour and a half, and you just listen. And it's really incredible. You can feel like you're at the bottom of the ocean or in a cloud or in a cocoon. And just closing the eyes and staying awake, hopefully, and listening is a really powerful experience. And the sound vibration moves your energy and vibrates your cells in your body. And so you come out feeling like you've just been in a bath, which I guess is why they're called sound baths. But yeah, so I started singing in those, and then it just naturally overflowed to my vinyasa classes that I was teaching.
Nice. So with everything you've said so far, it all comes back to kind of freeing up your soul and being open, being free. Did you always have that kind of mindful presence, or do you remember a time in your life when that started, or was there something in particular that got you interested in?
Yeah, well, I'd say I always have been very tuned to, sort of this muse, this soul energy. As a child, I played a lot of imaginary games, and but I think what happened was when I went away to college and I was at my first year at UCLA, general acting training, you do these things where you lay on your back and you feel into your body and you notice your breath. And it's all part of the acting curriculum. They're getting you to go inside. They're getting you to learn about yourself so you'll know what to bring to a role. And I found a lot of stuff going on inside. And I found that while acting and creating is very therapeutic, it's not therapy. And I needed a different place that was like a safe space just for personal exploration, where I could move through some trauma, move through some stuck patterning, some old downloads, some, habits, and just seek, awareness, the next level of awareness, so that I could bring that elevated state to my work as an artist. So I'd say it really kind of kicked off at UCLA. And as a 17-year-old, when I went away to college, we're dealing with material that's heavy-duty stuff and having to go through these situations dealing around death and violence and abuse, these stories that we tell on stage. And I didn't have a way to deal with it. And so what we did was we just drank and partied and passed out.
The classic cure.
Yeah. And that kind of works for a while. And then, you find yourself somewhere and you wake up and you look around and you just say, oh, this isn't me. This isn't how I'm going to heal. This isn't how I'm going to solve anything. And it was after a quite disastrous camping trip that I realized I needed to shift. And so I knew a friend who I had met serendipitously. And this kind of comes up for me a lot with my journey of just seeing somebody and being like, hey, and having a moment connecting with someone. I met this girl I sang with in choir in high school. I said, what are you doing this summer? And she's like, oh, I'm going to go to an ashram and become a yoga teacher. And I was like, can I do that too? And so that's how I ended up at my first yoga teacher training after, hitting rock bottom at freshman year and just not feeling good in my body, and then meeting a friend and just saying yes and going into the unknown, going off the beaten path. Yeah.
That's really interesting. I'm trying to think about this as someone, or who I was maybe 2.5 or 3 years ago, like hearing all this high level stuff about moving energies and letting your soul be open. That would have fallen on deaf ears. And so I'm thinking more of like, because I know when I I heard so many people talking about meditation. I heard performers always had some sort of meditation practice, but I just had no clue how to get into it. And everything that I tried to find just seemed way too high level for me. I had no clue what people were talking about. I couldn't wrap my head around it at all. So how would you suggest, like someone like I was just a couple years ago, not that I'm some guru now, but how would you suggest that someone get started even with that exploration?
Well, if you have a curiosity for it, I think you've already moved in that direction. If you have the awareness to say, oh, I think I'd like to try meditation, you're already like through the door, I think. And then it's just a matter of kind of opening up a little bit and just kind of looking around, like what happened. I mean, that I can just say that that's what I did, where I just was like, okay, this way of coping with life is not working for me. Let me just talk to these other people and see what they're doing and see what they like. And if that feels good to me, maybe I'll try that out. And so it doesn't have to be a super high pressure situation because you already know, okay, this way that I'm coping with things doesn't work. Let me just try this and let me just do it. You know, if they're saying to sit down and breathe into my low belly, I'll just try that and do that and see how that feels. And if it works for me, great. If it doesn't really work or I don't really feel like I'm able to calm down at all, maybe I need something else. Maybe I need something that's like a little bit more of a moving meditation. Maybe I need to do kickboxing. Maybe I need to run a marathon. You know, you can find sort of mindfulness in all these activities. But I think it's, you know, it's where you're kind of going in to find yourself, your inner teacher, and what's required, really the only thing that's required is for you to start being honest with yourself. Does this work? Do I feel more relaxed?
Yeah.
You know.
So you made an interesting point there, talking about finding mindfulness basically in activity and motion, like running a marathon or kickboxing. I think that's really where I got my start doing jujitsu, because you're so forced to be in the moment. Mm-hmm. Like it's really hard to think about anything else if someone's trying to choke you. So,
totally.
But do you see some difference between mindfulness and motion and actually sitting still and being quiet and meditating?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, the sitting is a lot more challenging, but I find the biggest reward there, because allowing yourself to sit, you're allowing yourself to really drop in and essentially stop doing and start being, which is a totally different frame of reference that we are not taught, that is not encouraged really in society because it's not productive. I say in quotes. And it's hard. It's really hard to sit still because I think there's a lot of trauma with it. You know, when you were bad as a kid, you had to go on timeout and be alone and sit down in a corner or whatever. I was just talking to a woman the other day who was doing my numerology chart, and she was saying that as a kid, she got sent on a lot of timeouts, and she goes, and that's where my meditation practice began. And she's like, I'm so glad I got sent on all those timeouts because I learned how to like go inside. And I just thought that was awesome. But I was also like, hey, can we find a way for kids to meditate that's not a punishment?
Go sit in the corner
and just save them a couple
a
couple years of trauma. So yeah, I think with sitting, there's something about it where you really ground your energy, where you let go of everything outside of you. You let go of all that external input and you drop into that inner compass, that one of my teachers calls it the Middle Earth inside of you, right? And we all have this place that's just this deep ocean of calm within us. And you can't really get that anywhere else. Yeah. That really deep stillness, which is, you know, an ideal place to move from. You know, moving from that focused calm is, I think, it's the greatest power you can have.
Yeah. And so going back to that fact that it's hard, I think that's a huge barrier for people because it seems like it should be so easy to just be still and close your eyes. But at least for me, when I started, I had this weird notion that you have to sit there and make your mind completely blank, which of course, as soon as I try to do that, my thoughts start racing and I'm like, I suck at this. I give up. But I found recently, because I still sit down sometimes and have a lot of trouble focusing. I bet you do too.
Yeah.
I don't presume to read your mind, but I think that's
Yeah.
just a human thing.
Yeah.
But just understanding that it's not supposed to be easy. Like the places where you find the best treasure in life is when you do a little bit of work. So even just fighting through that point, and again, not trying to make your mind blank, but just being present. Just being
Yeah, I've heard a couple teachers say it in a couple really cool ways. The first is the ocean analogy that I think I brought into meditation class last week, but where the top of the ocean's really choppy and you think the whole ocean is like that, and yet when you drop down, you find that there is stillness down here, and the whole ocean isn't 20-foot swells. And so, but it's totally fine for the top of the ocean to be going through all those swells. It's just, where are you? Are you in a tiny boat on top, or are you like with your really great scuba gear down at the bottom? One of my favorite meditation teachers, Sally Kempton, was saying that it's all part of your experience. And so even when those thoughts come up, to just love them and see them and just be like, that's part. What she explained to me is that it's part of the meditation, which to me was like, oh, that's a big aha moment, because I thought meditation was only when I was like in a crystal at the bottom of the ocean. But really, she's saying, no, that's part of the meditation. Part of the meditation is you being like, wow, I have a lot running around in my mind right now. You're meditating. If you're just sitting and acknowledging that with that seat of awareness, you're meditating.
Definitely, because it happens whether you acknowledge it or not.
Yeah.
If you don't acknowledge it, it'll drive all of your decisions without you really playing a part in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. I remember in one of the classes, something that really helped me a lot. You were just saying, don't take it so seriously. Just kind of acknowledge your thoughts and, again, it's fine.
Yeah.
I used to think, I have to do this well. I have to. If I'm going to meditate, I'm going to be the best meditator ever. And it just doesn't work like that.
You can't muscle it. And that's confronting for a lot of people. And maybe for people that lift weights, like, oh, I can't just muscle this. I can't just like push it away from me. No, you have to soften to find it. And something else that helps me when I'm having a hard time dropping in is knowing that it's easy and that the mind wants to go there. Yourself wants to go to this place that's quiet and calm. And it's naturally attracted to it, just like you would be attracted to a gorgeous sunset, or you would be attracted to, a beautiful, aurora borealis, or the way you would be like enchanted by this like volunteer poppy in your front yard. It's like that's the meditative energy, that your attention's just naturally drawn to that beauty, and that it's easy. You're just in the moment.
You were just painting some beautiful pictures. I'd love to see what's going on inside of here. Like, poppies, aurora borealis.
Yeah, right? And it's like, you don't have to be like, oh, excuse me, I need to spend 10 minutes looking at aurora borealis. Like, and like, please don't distract me because I'm looking at how beautiful this is.
It's beautiful because it exists.
Yeah, and it just takes your breath away, and you have to be there and look at every part of it because it's so beautiful.
Yeah. So surprisingly enough, after living in LA almost 9 years, I still don't really know that many actors or actresses.
That's amazing. Yeah. I feel like all I know is actors.
Yeah. Is this pretty common in that field? Like people being more mindful, more present? The way you described acting at the beginning, I'm like, yeah,
that's not everybody's definition of acting. Is my definition. I think everybody has their own kind of thing that they go to acting for. And it wasn't always, for me, like I wasn't always aware that there was this healing happening and this channeling happening. But as a kid, my parents would really encourage me to sing and to perform. And, so at first I thought like, oh, this is what I do to receive love. I perform. And so for a while I thought it was that, which is also what had to be collapsed when I went through my breakdown when I was at college acting and my parents weren't there being like, you're amazing and we love you. I was like, oh, well, if I'm not going to get love from this, where am I going to get love from? Hence the journey towards mindfulness and yoga and healing. But yeah, I think every actor comes to it from a different place, but for me, the meat and potatoes of it is seeing life through a different perspective and really stepping in somebody's shoes. And I think now more than ever and always stories are going to be important, which is why I'm so glad you're doing this podcast of just getting people's stories, because we have to know that the guy next to us is like going through something and that that's valid and we can learn something from that. And stories connect us, they heal us. And I had to really dig to find that because, it's hard out there on the actor hustle. There's a lot of rejection, and I had to find this place of peace that I was like bringing this craft forward, and I was going to continue to develop it and keep looking at these dark shadows within myself to do this work because, it had to be for something other than for my parents to applaud, and it had to be for, the betterment, I think, of our society, which is what I'm working at now.
Well, that's cool that you at least found out that after you stopped doing it because you got congratulations or love from your parents, it's still something that you wanted to do. I don't really know what I was doing, anything that I was doing for. It was just kind of on autopilot for the first 25 years of my life, and then finally woke up one day and started making decisions for myself.
That's awesome.
But it takes some tough times to get there for some people. For me, at least. I had to hit rock bottom. I hit rock bottom, what I thought was rock bottom. Then I broke out the pickaxe, started digging a little bit.
Totally. I forgot what I was going to say about that.
That's fine. So what is Soul Flow Yoga all about?
Oh, yeah. Well, Soul Flow Yoga also comes from that place it comes from a heart-based creative place for me. And also, there's a lot of different forms of yoga out there that are, for a lot of different things. And especially here in the West, we, of course, have commodified it and materialized it a bit. But for me, what I wanted Soul Flow Yoga to be about is I wanted to sort of integrate these different lines of teaching that I had learned. My first yoga teacher training, 200-hour training, was in Ashtanga yoga, very disciplined athletic practice where you do the same postures every day. Then I studied Bikram yoga, again, same postures in a hot room. Then I started getting into more vinyasa style classes. Then I started doing sort of some tantric practices of subtle energy movement, which was a really amazing experience for me, where I found the energy where, a lot of in the Vedic tradition of yoga, where people would just say, oh, this is a pose and this is, tree pose. What I found through the subtle energy practices was how that pose was discovered, and people letting energy move through their body until they landed in a place. Oh, this is an asana. And so it's sort of like reverse engineering yoga. So that was a huge, huge influence on me. And I think that subtle energy work gets skipped over a lot, and we get really focused on what does this outer picture look like? Does it look like the cover of Yoga Journal? Does it look like Warrior 2? And I'm like, okay, what's all this stuff that's going on inside you to get that to happen? Or are we just cramming ourselves into cookie cutter shapes? So Soul Flow Yoga is all about fluidity, moving from the soul center, finding the postures in an organic way. And my goal is for everybody to feel like they're waking up all their cells, they're feeling really good in their body, and that their breath is slowing down, their breath is deepening, they're not cramming their breath into this tiny little, certain yogic breath. It's full breathing through the whole body, and returning them to their natural rhythm. I use the elements a lot. They've been huge for me in my practice of working with, earth element, fire element, water element, air element, even, working with just the quality of spaciousness. And I find that's really great fuel. And it's sort of more along the shamanic line of things. But that's what I do with Soul Flow Yoga. Basically just returning people to their natural rhythm, letting things unfold. There's a lot of freedom. There's a lot of modifications in the practice, so it's accessible to everybody.
Yeah, definitely, because most yoga classes are not accessible to me at all, personally.
Yeah.
I spend most of the time just thinking, like, my leg doesn't bend that way.
Oh, I just hate that.
You could say it however many times you want. My leg doesn't bend that way.
I know. I can't stand that when they'll come up to you and they'll be like, do that, do that, do that. And it's like, I'll guide somebody there if I think that they can go there. Okay. But it's like, can we just find what feels good here for a second instead of cramming ourselves into these shapes?
Yeah. So I've done a bit of yoga. I've done a few of your classes, definitely. But I still feel like I'm not getting the full benefit of it because I'm fighting my body so much. Like I'm struggling to hold any pose that we do. Mm-hmm. So I guess the advice there would just be to keep doing it right until I'm not struggling so much.
But I mean, I remember I feel that with the beginning of the practice, I think is the hardest because you're not used to putting so much weight on your hands like that on the floor. And certainly, especially if you lift weights, it's really hard for those shoulders to open. Like in down dog is like, God, forget about it. I remember when I could barely do down dog for like 2 breaths. And I was like, get me out of here. This is insane. But what one of my teachers, Chad Hamron, who I studied Iyengar yoga with, he showed me how to work with really strong sensation in the body as the portal of like opening. So, right, when you're in a posture that's uncomfortable and you're shaking and you feel like you're fighting your body, to sort of, to take your breath there to those places where you're feeling tension and see if you can just stay with it. And the mind is going to go crazy, right? It's going to be like, we can't do this. Get out of here. Why are you trying yoga? You're supposed to be doing martial arts. Like, just like it'll just say things to you. And so really, there's these things sort of like edges, like everything will bubble up and you're like, oh, I got to get out of here. I got to get out of this pose. And if you just kind of keep breathing in and out through the nose, all of a sudden you get through that and you're like, wow, I'm like on the other side of all those thoughts. And then they start to happen again and they start building up again. And then you're like, get to the other end of that. And I think once you have that experience a few times, you can really start to watch your body and be like, oh, if I just breathe with this, like it's going to open up sooner or later. And just finding a practice that's designed for you. I work one-on-one with a lot of people. We'll work one-on-one. We'll get a video that they can go along with, and I'll find poses that work for their bodies where they're at right now. I think a lot of classes right now are so vinyasa heavy. You're doing so many chaturangas, so many down dogs. A lot of people aren't ready for that after coming straight off the computer. So, finding, 6 poses, a nice gentle flow to start opening up, and then, get into those like more, massive vinyasa classes.
Yeah. And just thinking about thoughts bubbling up and then working to get to the other side of that, that's so analogous to pretty much everything in life.
Yeah.
Just whenever that struggle starts happening, you can let go of the pose or you can hold it a little bit longer and see what's on the other side.
And then you start to really get addicted to the other side.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm talking about, using that strong sensation in the body. Now when I feel that, it's sort of like, oh, great, this is tight. Let's get in there. Like, it's kind of this like excitement that I feel where I'm like, it's exciting to me because it's showing me, I really, that process of listening to your body, it's showing me what needs to happen. And so when I get that, I'm like, oh, great. Let's work with this. Oh, yeah, that hurts. Okay, can I just do that? Oh, that hurts more. Okay, great. Like, so just, framing it instead of, oh, this is painful, let me get out, into being like, oh, yes, this is what I need, is to stretch this.
Yeah.
That was a big deal for me. And I found that through the tantric work I had done of finding, well, she explains it, my teacher, Nisha Bhairavi, she explains sensation on a spectrum where just as much discomfort as you're willing to express or willing to experience, that's how much pleasure you're able to experience. So the more like uncomfortable sensation you can open to, it's going to broaden on the other side. And that's always great incentive because I think we'll do anything if we can feel good.
I've been thinking about that a lot lately too, kind of using discomfort as like a beacon for success. Like you can take the easy path, or like that seems like it sucks. Let me go that way. And I don't know. I've kind of always done that, but never really thought much of it. But I really think that's where all the great things are, like fighting through discomfort. And I don't know if you've done any martial arts at all. Have you?
It's actually funny. I did combat and stuff at UCLA as part of my training. So we did some Tai Chi, and then we did, I can't remember, but we did more, I guess it was more like sword play. But we did a little bit of capoeira, which I know is like a Brazilian like dance fighting sort of. And then I did take one mixed martial arts class after I was like 4 years into being a yoga teacher, and I was like thinking like, I got this. Like I am so in touch with my body, blah, blah, blah. I get in there and dealing with this impulse and this person in front of you that's moving. I was like, oh, this is a whole other level of presence, more like I experience when I'm rock climbing, which is like, okay, every step matters. Yeah. But just really being able to move with somebody was really humbling for me. So I did one, like maybe it was 2 years ago now.
Yeah. I think I became so addicted, especially to jiu-jitsu, because in the beginning it's really hard. You have no clue what you're doing. You're just getting tapped out left and right.
Oh my God.
But you just keep on going for that discomfort because it's fun, and you see people that are really good and you can get there one day. But you get past that initial really tough part, and it never gets any easier. You start going with better and better people. It gets more complex, and like kind of always chasing that other side of the discomfort, like you were saying. And I haven't really made it past the beginner stages with like yoga, and I still feel like I'm a beginner in meditation and everything. But I imagine one day I'll be in a similar place where like it gets a little bit harder even as you go on. But
when you're getting through deeper and deeper levels, yeah.
So I won't keep you for too much longer, but you can just tell people where we can find you. Any social media?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find most of my things on my website, which is soulflowyoga.org, and soul is SOUL, flowyoga.org. Or I'm also on Instagram at soul.flow.yoga. And you can find me, my acting work and my music work at my website, which is just KaitlinHuwe.com. And you'll find a lot of threads of mindfulness and elements in my work as well. So it's all connected.
Perfect. Well, thank you for taking the time out of your day to stop by and be the first member of the podcast.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for doing this. It's really great.
Yeah, we'll try to keep it going. Again, my name is Terrence Davey. You can find me on Instagram at Terrence Davey or buffnerdla.com. Thank you.